folks. We're going to start. Are we ready, Kevin? Yes? All right, it's June 16th. We're getting ready to go into closed session tonight. Can everybody hear okay? Sound system seems to be working. Can you believe that? Even though we don't need it tonight. The first thing I will do is take roll call. Director Sheriff Watt.
Here.
Director Toombs.
Here.
Director Cordova.
Here.
Director Gillette.
Here.
And I'm Len Welsh, the president. I'm here too. So we have a full board. And at this time we'll take public comments. I would like to make one statement before we do take public comments. And I have been struggling with trying to make these agendas as clear as possible about what we're actually doing in these closed sessions. And I wanted to be crystal clear with you folks tonight. First of all, we understand the strength of sentiment against the MOU as originally proposed. And we are going into closed session tonight not to negotiate with the labor negotiators or anything like that. We're just going to be having a discussion between council and us over options for new contract terms. That's what we're doing tonight. So I just wanted to be clear on that, because I know a lot of people are still writing me and saying, please don't adopt the old MOU, and I think we've sort of moved beyond that. So with that being said, is there anybody who would like to make a comment before we go into closed session? We're exploring options for a new contract. Yes, absolutely. Yes, a different one with different terms.
So we can go to the game?
Well, yeah.
That's where I want to be.
We all want to go to the game.
Yes, I'm Gloria Morrison, longtime resident of Kensington. I wanted to say that I, maybe in the minority, was impressed by the, what shall we say, the memorandum of understanding that had been distributed to us by Chuck Toombs and Pat Gillette in the past. I think that what has been done is very good. You don't get everything you want, but you get some of it. You get started on a road to dealing with pension liabilities. You get, and I actually thought it was very, very good. I brought it out of my files, so I'm wondering, when you're talking tonight, are you going to at least use this as a starting point?
I would rather not put it that way. What we're doing is we're trying to come up with the best deal we possibly can, keeping in mind the need, the budgetary needs of the community and the needs for a good police force. We want to approach exploring new options with a completely open mind. If there's something in there that's good, we're not going to toss it out just because it's in the old MOU. But we are exploring new options.
Because at least based on Chuck Toombs' discussion with the audience, it sounded as though most of the items that we were concerned about had been at least explored. And I'm hoping that we will at least be part of it, and anyway, I want to wish you the best of lucks.
Thank you very much.
I'd like some clarification as to whether or not we're going to take a vote on the MOU since it's had 2 readings, if we're moving ahead in a different direction. Can anyone help me with that?
I certainly don't plan to move to take a vote.
It's been read twice, though. It's subject to a vote. Doesn't it require a vote?
Not that I know of. Council, do you have any comment on that? Not tonight we are, but soon we will be. You're right.
So the item just exists without being continued or closed?
Well, I think it is an option for us to either amend what we have or completely rewrite it whatever we think is the best for the community and whatever deal we can strike with the POA. And then if we get to a point where we think we have something workable, we take a vote on it.
I think that's the source of the confusion because it's been presented to the public twice on the dais for consideration, and so I think that's...
Well, that's true, and there has been a lot of confusion over that, and I appreciate the point, and that's why I tried to make a point tonight of saying, look, we get that there are problems with that package that we are calling the MOU, and we're going through it from beginning to end to see, what would make sense to change.
Can I just point out, I think you're getting that, are you talking about the rules of order to consider, get the vote to is that what you're going after?
No, typically, contracts are presented with no more than 2 readings, in my experience, and it's okay to adjudicate it if you have another contract coming up. You just have to vote one down and present the other. So I'm just wondering if what we were doing with this particular piece of business, if we were moving in a different direction, what the requirements were to vote up or down, and I think my sense is that's the confusion because this remains out there.
Yes, I think there has been some confusion, so we were trying to move on. And could I ask you, Jim, to try to make it brief so we can get to work and let people go to the Warriors game?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, I'd like to take exception with Gloria Morrison, my friend here. For reasons that I've stated before, I believe that the MOU, which includes employee pension contributions with corresponding salary increases, would be a terrible mistake and actually a dereliction of your fiduciary responsibilities. But there are some other factors which I'd like to present this evening. And these include that the fact that over the past year there has been discussions as a result of Adam Benson's analysis to suggest that Kensington officers are undercompensated relative to other jurisdictions and that the budget projections seem to support the MOU over the next 2 years. I would like to give you my reasons why neither one of these suppositions is correct. First, regarding compensation, Adam made a number of assumptions which tended to put the salaries paid Kensington officers in an unfavorable light. These
Jim, could I ask you something? A lot of this stuff, we're going to be having a Finance Committee meeting on the 23rd.
Yes.
And we will be, perhaps we may know a little bit more about where we're heading with the MOU, but the points you're making have been raised before. I think if your point is that some of the assumptions that Adam has made require further scrutiny and discussion, we will be doing that in the Finance Committee meeting. Tonight, we're simply trying to get going with Council on options to move
All right,
forward.
well, if you'd like me to bring that back to the Finance Committee, I'll do that.
I'm sorry?
If you'd like me to bring that back to the Finance Committee, I will do that.
I would. I promise you we will fully explore it.
I hope so.
Rochelle,
I'm a little hesitant to stem public comment
for a Warriors game.
for a game. I appreciate, no, we're not censoring anyone, and we're huge Steph Curry fans, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that everyone gets their say. So,
Of course we do. It's just that there is no point in repetition. That's my only point. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, Lisa Corona, resident of Kensington. First of all, just really briefly, I want to compliment the board for the efficient, swift, thorough hiring of a new general manager. That process was huge. I know Pat and Rochelle worked tirelessly to make that happen in such a short period of time. It was really an amazing effort. So I just wanted to recognize that and thank you all for making that happen so quickly. Regarding the MOU, I'm not going to speak to the details of the MOU, but I do have a concern because I've heard some chatter in the neighborhood. But for me, as a resident of Kensington, I want to know that we treat all of our employees fairly, that we pay them fairly, that we respect the work that they do, that we expect them to do excellent work. It seems that this issue of fair compensation has been studied a number of times. First, Pat and Chuck studied that as part of their work in the negotiation process and looked at comparable cities and what other police departments were doing. There was a lot of give and take. I read the MOU a few months ago whenever it was put out. I felt like Mrs. Morrison that it that it was quite fair, and that the total compensation was, over the course of the contract, was not excessive. Next, we had I guess Adam came in, and he did another assessment, and he looked at it, and he said, this seems reasonable. They're, paid lower than all the adjacent cities around us, that some of the concessions that he looked at seemed reasonable. It seemed in line for him, and, he's a professional person who's looking at this as well. So I guess what I'm really saying is that I think there's good news on that front, that we're not overpaying and we're not maybe underpaying. But I do believe we should pay people fairly, and that's all staff, not just the sworn police officers, but all the staff who work for this district. And I want to be part of a community that's paying people fairly. We want to be able to recruit qualified staff. We want to retain quality staff who then become part of our community. Some people, so if some people think that we're paying too much because, quote, we can't afford it in the long term, then I think we should be monitoring the budget carefully, and if needed, begin looking at the level of service and the level of staffing the Kensington community wants to achieve with the funds that we have. But I don't think that means we should pay our police or any of our staff at the lowest possible number that we can get. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
May I make a point that we have someone in the audience here supporting Mr. Benson's analysis, and we've just sort of quashed Mr. Watt's analysis. So let's just listen, please.
I'm sorry, but I have to take exception with this, because it's not fair to let people come up here and speak in favor of this when, in fact, there are very strong reasons why, in fact, you should be taking another look at this. So I would prefer to go through what it is I have to say. With regard to whether or not we are paying fair salaries, this has been mentioned here tonight, apparently. People seem to think that we have. However, the analysis that has been done compares Kensington with other large cities which have different needs, different service levels, and which include communications support. We've also, in these analysis, we've compared the Step 5 of Kensington against, for example, the Step 7 in Albany, because we're using the highest step at the officer's pay grade. This is not a fair comparison. If we compare Step 5 against Step 5 in Albany, we'll get an entirely different analysis. We should also consider the fact that all of our officers are at the highest step, at Step 5, whereas many of the officers in the other municipalities are spread across the different step ranges. Not considered is the fact that we have 5 officers in senior officer positions with 5 regular officers, a 50-50 ratio. Most municipalities don't have such a ratio. So consequently, on an overall basis, we pay higher salaries. There's also, and this is my biggest point, there is no recognition of the pension benefits that come with this particular job. It's well known that Kensington police officers have the Cadillac pension plan. The Cadillac pension plan is a huge benefit for these officers. In fact, in the analysis that I presented to you back in November, I pulled information from 4 comparable cities, and I came up with numbers that suggested that in Kensington, the average compensation, including salaries and pension and other benefits, is $197,000 for officers here, including the chief. In other municipalities, where the chief is also included, the cost came in on average at $170 in Hercules, $167 in Hercules, $170 in Albany, and $133 in Clayton. So on a total compensation basis, I think we need to recognize that our officers are well compensated. I have other things that I want to say, but I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. All right, Celia?
I'd like to say that I've heard talk about whether or not we can renegotiate, or people have acted in good faith when they negotiated the last MOU, which hasn't passed yet. And I do want to say that I believe that new information has emerged now that we didn't have 6 months ago. And anytime new information emerges, I believe that there is an opportunity and, in fact, an obligation to reevaluate what the compensation package is. It has been mentioned by more than one person that in 2 years we probably will not be able to afford the compensation package that was talked about 6 months ago or 3 months ago. And I would like to reduce this to something that I know very well, and that is, I don't think anybody in this room would try to buy a house knowing that in 2 years he could not afford the payments. And I urge you, you are my neighbors. I know that you could call upon me if you needed help. I think that I would call upon you as human beings. I am asking that you not encumber us in such a way that in 2 years we cannot afford this package. I would urge you also to remember that we gave a 3% salary increase across the board in March of 2004 and made it retroactive to 2013. The officers were not expected to give anything toward their retirement. The real problem, as I understand it, is that we have such huge liability because of the retirement benefits, and that increasing the salary so that the officers can pay for those retirement benefits is not a win situation for us. And I think that Jim has explained that before. It ends up with a higher pension liability for all of us. The last thing that I would say to you is that in the past weeks, I have done a little exploration, actually a large exploration, on what I perceive as irregularities or trying to find the right word so that the lawyers don't jump down my throat, but a parceling out of giving of overtime to certain officers in the department, and others simply were denied that. And I have the documents. I'd be happy to show that to you. 2 officers were given the maximum amount of overtime, and that is a perk that I believe is given by the police chief.
Celia, I did get that information from you, and I am going to pass it on to Chief Hart and General Manager Hart.
I hope that somebody looks carefully
We will
at
look
that.
very carefully at
Yes.
it. And I appreciate you doing the homework on that.
It was a lot of homework.
My name's Andrew Gutierrez, longtime resident of Kensington. We're thinking about an MOU, but are we still thinking about the same old paradigm of how to manage the police force in this community? And it seems to me that we don't need a chief of police. What we need is a really good manager, and we need somebody to implement the daily strategy of assigning what the officers should be doing, the everyday sorts of things.
Mr. Gutierrez, Professor Gutierrez, I don't mean to cut you off, but that actually is an issue that 2 members of this committee are going to be exploring in depth with members of the public, and it's
And so
not...
what I want to do is I want to remind
Okay.
you of that. So we need to think a little bit out of the box, which we haven't been doing for a long time. Thank you.
Thanks for the comment. All right, I'm going to adjourn the meeting to closed session. I hope we'll be done in about an hour and be reporting out then.
What did you report? Not much.
Well, we're probably going to be reporting no action because we're not negotiating or anything like that, but you never know. You will be able to get the information, though. How soon, nobody's here for the report out, Kevin, how soon can we get the result on the website, do you think?
A couple weeks at the most.
Okay. I don't think we're...
It'll be exactly more than likely that, because we're just getting an update. It's not going to be any kind of decision made.
Yeah, we're not planning to make a decision that would be a reportable thing tonight. Okay, thank you all for your comments and your interest and the time you spend. We really appreciate it. Reporting out, we went into closed session at 6:25 this evening, and we finished our closed session at 7:45. We have nothing to report. No action was taken. And
We adjourn the meeting?
I second the motion. Any opposed? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're done.